and they're disappointed with what's happening. We just had a conversation in the living room of somebody who, if you talk to him and he starts expressing his memories of working at a railroad facility here in Indiana that now is being shipped away, and he's got a choice of moving there to keep his retirement or staying here and getting paid a lot less. He's really angry. He's really frustrated. So I should have said angry and frustrated instead of bitter. I should have said people rely on their religious faith during these times of trouble as opposed to cling to. But the sentiments that I expressed had to do with the belief that people are not being treated fairly today in America. They're working hard the same way that our parents worked hard, and yet they're not seeing the same rewards. And part of the reason that I get frustrated and I get angry with what's happening in the lives of so many Americans is precisely because their stories are like my stories. Their stories are like Michelle's, and they're like mine. I mean, the irony is that I think it is fair to say that both Michelle and I grew up in much less privileged circumstances than either of my two other potential opponents.
But they're not the ones being called elitists. Why do you think that is?
Which is curious. Well, I think what it has to do with is the fact that number one, we haven't decided to try to tag them with some of these attacks the same way that they've tried to attack us. But I think part of it also has to do with the fact that I am less familiar to people. Look, let's be honest. Here I am, a African American named Barack Obama, right, who's running for president. I mean, that's a leap for folks, and I think it's understandable that my political opponents would say, he's different, he's odd, he's sort of unfamiliar, and what do we know about him? And to raise questions. So if I don't wear a flag pin, that becomes a cause for concern. If John McCain doesn't wear a flag pin, look, he's a war hero, and I understand why I don't think anybody's going to question John McCain's.
So you're treated differently then, you think?
Well, I don't.
What Barack is saying is that, part of, what we've been doing is we have to introduce ourselves to people. People have to know all sides of us. And I think when people, what we've been seeing in all these contests is that when people know who Barack is, they know who we are, outside of the caricature, outside of the sort of one-liner, when they hear our stories, and they understand why we're doing this, which is, you talk about any anger or resentment about words said towards us. That's not what gets me angry.
What gets you angry then?
It's the unfairness that we're seeing in this country. It's the fact that you've got folks who get up and go to work every day and work as hard as anybody, but they don't have insurance. When you look into the faces of these kids who are on these rope lines and these rallies, and they are just as promising, they have just as much potential, regardless of their race or their gender, but they're in schools that are underfunded. And we know this as a country. We know what we're doing wrong. This is why we're doing this. We're not doing it to, gain power or prestige. The fact of the matter is that we both care deeply about this country, and we know in our hearts that it's moving in a different direction, that you can't make that change just by putting somebody new in the White House. You've got to fundamentally change the way we look at ourselves. And I think that people are responding to Barack because they see themselves in him. There are people who don't know him, but when people get to know Barack and understand his story, the connection is real.